Hey there, this is Rob from Southgate Media Group. The following podcast was recorded during the SMG Podcast Marathon at Indy PopCon 2018 in Indianapolis, Indiana. This podcast marathon was 10 hours long and featured 19 podcasts covering a wide variety of geek-centric topics. Before we jump into the episode, I want to thank our amazing sponsors for this SMG Podcast Marathon. Without you, it would not have been nearly as cool. Links to our sponsors can be found in the show notes and at our website, southgatemediagroup.com. First of all, thank you to Tango Comics for the exceptional event poster. Thanks to our banner sponsors, Passionerdly Podcasts, Tome Travelers Podcast, Kinda Nerdy News with KJ Podcast, Movie Madness Podcast, Ed Maudlin and the Maudlin Realty Group, Very Dark, Very Quick Podcast, Advanced TV Herstory Podcast, Seriously? Let's Play Podcast, Dice Voyeurs Podcast, The Masks of Nythralothtop Podcast, The CritShow Podcast, The Amazing LARP, Chronicles of the Realm, Midnight Matinees Podcast, The Blue Box Café in Elgin, Illinois, Otherworld Theater in Chicago, Illinois, the This Week in Geek Podcast, live at the Blue Box Podcast, the Binge-Worthy Podcast, and SMG Microcons. A special thanks to the Bonus Hours Podcast Network for sponsoring our free charging station. There would have been a lot of dead devices without your support. And finally, thanks to the sponsors of our program, the Bonus Hours Podcast Network, featuring the podcast Between the Profound and Profane, Kinda Nerdy News with KJ, The Crit Show, an actual play podcast, Very Dark, Very Quick, the podcast, Passionerdly.com, featuring the podcasts Dice Voyeurs and Tome Travelers, the Kevin Long Show podcast, and finally, the upcoming book, Pod Life, Podcaster's Stories. And there we go, the plugs are done. Enjoy the show.
Good. Oh, booed already, huh? That's that. There it is. We haven't even spoken a syllable. We're booed yet. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I guess I would say good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Gaming with Scott. I am here with John Garlick.
Howdy.
What are we talking about today, John?
All right. Well, our primary thing, we do superhero role-playing games. So I think I'd like to talk about the worst superheroes.
The worst superheroes?
The worst superheroes from comic books.
Marvel, DC, anybody. We're all fair game.
All fair game. I mean, you know, we'll avoid like picking on children's television too bad because I mean, like Banana Man has has his moments.
Right. Okay.
But I figure, you know, that's one of the things that, you know, we live in an era where superheroes are cool again at the moment, and so it's worth remembering the misfires.
All righty. Do you have an example, just as a for instance?
As a for instance, I would say superhero that isn't cool, and in this case, deliberately so. Uh-huh. Greatest American hero.
See, believe it or not, I'm walking on air, and I was thinking about that exact superhero. Mm-hmm. Why do you think he's uncool?
Well, because to a large extent, he's a send-up of the superhero trope. He's uncool on purpose, where the entire premise was that he has this alien suit that's supposed to give him superpowers, let him fly and whatever. But
Venom. No. Oh, okay. No, you said fly. I should have not gone to Venom. Okay, I get exactly where you're going there. All right.
And so I mean, he's like, he's sort of an everyman, and at the same time, they sort of cut him off at the knees by having him lose the instruction manual. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Okay.
And
the suit never tries to take over the world. The suit never goes completely nuts and controls him.
Right. He fights crime and has wacky hijinks. And it's, it's 1970s TV.
Okay.
Early 80s.
Yeah, exactly.
And it sort of, instead of going for the sort of Superman model, which he kind of, is he's kind of a send-up of that.
Okay, so do you think that it was just a vehicle to explore the relationship with his whiny relationship with his girlfriend, or do you think they were ever going to get around to the superpowers, or did they just because he kind of kept flying into that trash dumpster bin over and over again? So I don't know if like Flight at Typical. not even Flight at Typical.
Well, I think it was mostly to showcase the curly the
golden
locks.
Curls.
Yeah. Yes. As in every the Art Garfunkel, every 70s show is technically about the hairstyles. So.
This is true.
That is a very good point.
So that is a very good example. That was actually number 3 on my list, but it's perfectly fine. All right, how do you want? What order do you want to do this in?
Oh, I mean, whichever
or do you
you
just
prefer.
want to wax poetic?
Oh, I'm fine. Just speaking extemporaneously. That's all.
Okay.
It's all fine by me.
Alrighty. Did you have a full list?
No, I was just sort of improvising as I went.
Alrighty. Worst superhero ever. Okay, so I want to give a shout out. Okay, we've looked at the greatest American hero.
Yeah.
Now I want to give a shout out to the majority of villains in DC, and at least 60% of the villains in Marvel. Primarily, you would think you would come up with a better plan. I mean, you have superpowers.
Yeah.
Okay, the majority of them, and they can't at least play halfway to
Oh, absolutely.
taking over. I mean, robbing a bank. They can't even.
Well, I mean, you're going to be kind of suspect right out of the gate if you're robbing the bank in a city full of superheroes.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, you could be in some other town and doing something, but yeah, a lot of these guys aren't mental giants. They have, most of Aquaman's villains or Spider-Man's villains.
Hey, whoa. Well, yeah, that's true. Aquaman is really patrolling the sea well.
Yeah.
You never hear about crime in the sea. Aquaman's doing his job. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they had him fighting sort of Cthulhu-like nemesis later on, but by and large, he gets a lot of just like dude with a scuba tank kind of crimes.
So, or do we want to flip to the other end, who we say... Do we want to say they're so terrifying that they're bad, like Kilgrave from Jessica Jones?
I think it's
possible. Or are you talking about just Paperclip Man?
I think we could get into characters that are. I'd say Kilgrave is, the purple guy is way on the other end of the spectrum. He's made to be very effective television by just how disturbing he is.
Right. It frightened me.
Oh,
so I would have to take him off the list as worst. Terrifying, most. Do we want to put the big purple guy on the list
Thanos?
Purely for the most recent movie and everyone hates him? No, okay, because that's pretty terrible, but it's not terrible bad. It's not terrible.
I'd say he was. I mean, my only complaint about Thanos as a villain is that they kind of play him up to be. Try to make him sympathetic, and I didn't feel that quite landed. I mean, he's really horrible all the way through, and he's kind of weepy at points. But
I thought he was kind of cuddly. Compared to the comic books, especially. Yeah. But yes, for a bad guy, he was kind of relatable.
An examination of Thanos' motives and how they changed,
would be fantastic.
Oh well, I mean. Because you can compare and contrast him with how he is in the comics, and I think that there would be a place for him to be like he is in the comics, where he's that sort of terrible, unrequited nerd love for death. That's an interesting take that I think has that's a target that needs to be lampooned, I think, especially in nerd culture.
True. Agreed.
But
so
I think that his just overweening arrogance in the film worked.
I was waiting for you to go a different direction with that. I was going to say, as the narcissist at the table, I was going to go, it was really not. Oh, no, it did. It was good. It was good. Okay, so bad superheroes like the Osprey.
Ooh, I'm not familiar with the Osprey.
The Osprey is kind of a low rent version. He's a good guy of the Vulture.
Oh, okay.
So like he can fly only like really slow, and he's a high science guy. Have you seen the most recent Deadpool?
I have not seen Deadpool 2 yet.
Deadpool 2, yes. There is a wonderful superhero in Deadpool 2 who is absolutely terrible. But I don't want to spoil it, so we'll skip past that. The Osprey was in a Spider-Man, and he was kind of a homegrown, almost like Arthur from The Tick.
Oh, okay.
So he could sort of fly a la Greatest American Hero, and he was kind of bulletproof except for the times he got shot. Like it was really one of those, like, he was in the Spider-Man verse where Spider-Man, a 16-year-old boy who's trying to come up with rent and finish his college classes, ran into, I am the Osprey, beyond the magnificent name, which is terrible, and the power set, which was terrible. He did not last very, very long and got stomped like a bug. And he wasn't even a bug. That was the funny part.
Well, all of Spider-Man's rogue gallery are sort of animal totem themed. I mean, and sometimes it works. I think that Spider-Man is a very interesting character with a versatile but, limited power set that makes for good drama. But there are some kind of hits and misses in the general rogues gallery of Spider-Man.
Okay.
Like, sometimes the animal theme just doesn't play out very well. Like I think Rhino is a pretty lame villain, but he's a good foil for Spider-Man.
Right.
The big strong guy versus
the not as strong guy who's
the
agility guy. Yeah, very, very good. Do we want to jump into the Tick? Like Bullet Man, fire me, boy! And his power is to go over the scene. And that's pretty much it.
I think Tick gets a pass because that succeeded at doing what I think the Greatest American Hero tried to do and didn't pull off.
Couldn't bring
They successfully, I think, lampooned the overripe superhero genre.
Excellent. Okay, then do we want to include now? So are we broadening this to include the Punisher? Everything prior to the Netflix?
Oh.
Well, as far as movies and cinema and portrayals, not the comics.
The big thing about Punisher, I think, is the attitude that goes into it is like 9/10 of the presentation. And Punisher comes from an era where they he was the grittiest of the gritty. And now everything else, to an extent, has kind of caught up with him. I mean, he was sort of the guy who was above and beyond the regular superheroes because he was really horrible about killing everybody, and that cast everything else into a contrast. But at the same time, I think that the rest of comic books post-Watchmen have exceeded that.
Any of the Watchmen characters get a vote for terrible superheroes?
Honestly, it's kind of hard to say some of them are superheroes.
Fair enough. So we're going to take villains off the table.
Well, no. I think bad villains deserve a shout out.
Okay.
I think the Silk Spectre, I personally like as a character because she's sort of a very good viewpoint character who is sort of the sanity check on the rest of the team, and I think that she wasn't done justice in the movie at all. I mean,
agreed.
The actress looked the part, but the writing to make the character sympathetic just wasn't there.
I don't think it was there at all. So are we giving an honorable shout out to bad writing as superpower?
Well, that brings me to my number one pick for a bad superhero, and I would say it would be Reed Richards.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Reed Richards has a dumb power. The character himself is kind of dull. He's sort of the bitchy boss of the rest of the team with like sub-Cyclops level leadership skills.
Whoa! Because, okay, I'm going to put a pin in that, but yeah, I hear what you're saying, although that's kind of rough. I mean...
Well, I mean, come on.
Fair enough. Go get him, guys.
Also, all he, his only good ability is his ability to make Deus Ex Machina plot devices, which could come from anybody. It's not very satisfying.
Fair enough.
As a comic book reader or viewer, I find Reed Richards to be usually the worst in whatever he's in.
Okay. So, and now specifically the power set, would you like the stretchy? Do you want to be able to go, hey, I need a beer from the fridge? Oh, I got a beer from the fridge. I didn't even need to get up.
Well, I mean, at the same time, he has the same power set as, like, Plastic Man. But
which I enjoyed, Plastic Man. But I liked the writing for Plastic Man.
And that is the big difference. That the character... Like, the problem isn't the powers. I'm a firm believer that if you can turn up a power high enough, anything becomes world-ending.
Oh, sure.
Like, if you... Reed Richards, in theory, could stretch himself across the sky and blot out the sun and,
kill all life as we know it.
Or stretch his arm out to monomolecular thinness and just slice somebody in half long ways. Or something like that. But he's never going to do that because the character is just struggling to be there.
Yeah.
Like they're struggling to find something for Reed Richards to do. And I kind of agree with Dr. Doom, who is a great character.
He is fantastic.
And
good shout out to Latveria.
Oh, absolutely. Latverian pride is very
strong at this stage.
But also, poor old Dr. Doom has never been done justice in a movie.
No.
He's a wizard in power armor, and they've never
never
been able to
most of that. Yeah.
I mean, Dr. Doom is a cool character.
Absolutely.
Who is, he plays it to the hilt. He has a bunch of Doom bots. He's, over the top villainous, and at the same time has this sort of Darth Vader level charisma, the presence to pull it off.
Yeah.
Whereas, he deserves way better way better heroes than the Fantastic Four.
Agreed. Well, and I think it's great your characterization of he's a wizard in power armor, and in the movies they have never portrayed the word wizard or the word power in that description.
I know he's always some bargain basement Kmart version of some other mutant
man in the Iron Mask.
Yeah, and,
which I'm sad.
Yeah.
If you want any lighthearted watching, that's a movie you should pick up. I'm going to bookend or call your bluff with Reed Richards for exactly the same reason.
Okay,
my number one is Scott Summers, Cyclops from the X-Men. He's the leader of the X-Men. He is a whiny, petulant, I'm going to do everything with role power and order you around. I'm never going to, and for anybody that knows, there's role power, there's expertise power, and there's relationship power. That means if you're friends with people, they'll do stuff for you better than if you're the boss and screaming orders at them while cracking the whip. And he is a whiny, petulant, role power using leader, for those of you that can't see this, I'm finger quoting, of the X-Men, who just whines and complains, and I don't think he was ever written well. I think it was...
He's there to be dunked on.
Right, by Wolverine and everyone else.
Like he's a straw man in a way, that he is the authority figure that the cool like loner is going to rebel against. Mm-hmm. And also he's sort of the preppy, corn-fed love interest for like he's the rival love interest for Jean Grey.
Exactly.
And technically Dark Phoenix, I guess.
And I never saw him, and I've not seen him been given justice from writing other than exactly what was outlined there. And the idea being that, okay, you're going to lead the X-Men, I guess because Professor Xavier said so, but you're not... his funniest line / interaction from the first movie was after the fight with Wolverine Mystique when he comes out and he goes, prove that you're you, and he goes, you're a bleep. I don't know if we can say that on the marathon, but
I don't know.
And spoilers, I guess. No.
Yeah.
And it's like that he was there just to go, you're a jerkhead, and they moved on, and it was like, really, that was his sum.
Oh, well, I mean, and the thing is that didn't they kill him off screen by the third movie? Honestly, I've seen X-Men 3 at least twice, and I can't tell you like 4 things that happened in that movie.
Yeah, exactly. So number one, bad, just bad.
I will give you that. That is legit.
And if you put Reed Richards and Scott Summers in the same movie, I don't think I would watch it, even if it was my absolute favorite top pick and then some Doctor Who thrown on top of it.
They form like
a My Little Pony cameo. I mean, nothing could get me to go see this thing. There would be absolutely
that would
horrible.
Come see the Scott Summers, Reed Richards, and other members of the Council of Jerks. They are meeting together to hold court and tell you how it is.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, my number 2, anybody with mind control.
Ooh, that's pretty good.
It's a little too much like that consent argument that was best displayed with the use of tea. If you offer someone tea and they say yes, and you go and make the tea and bring it back to them and say, here, would you like some tea? And they've changed their mind. You cannot force the tea upon them. The same way that mind control should not be like, that's a little too... Well, I guess it's the times.
It's
maybe.
More of a villain power, really. But even then, it's kind of, by definition, deprotagonizing. That right. It also gets into really tricky questions of morality where you start to think, well, okay, so if the hero is mind-controlled to do something bad, is he guilty of that?
Yeah, exactly. Then I'll flip the script on that one and say mind reading.
The ultimate,
terrible power.
The ultimate plot killer. It's used most egregiously in, I think, Star Trek to be just sort of the
mind meld.
ESP.
We can't get past this plot point. So
so we're going to have Kess get a special feeling. About how there's something. Something bad, or Counselor Troy gets, got again. That was honestly used to disturbing effect and not in like a deliberate way.
2 eyes in the dark. Can I do that?
Well, I mean,
okay.
Well, and I mean, honestly, they just, you just sort of, okay. Now, it is important to say that being a psychic in fiction means different things in different genres. Like, if you're a superhero psychic, like Jean Grey or Professor Xavier, then you have, a fairly comparable power set to everybody else.
Okay.
It kind of can remove some of the tension, but it can be some interesting exposition.
Okay.
Now, if you're a psychic in, say, a horror movie, you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah.
That is not a recipe for a long and happy life. You're going to be a bunch of jump cuts. You're going to say something that will freak out the
rest of the group
characters.
Right.
And then probably get got in spectacular fashion.
Right, I was going to say, and once you reveal the linchpin of how to get out of it, potentially extricate yourself, you're going to be killed by the plot.
Right. Now, I'd say a good example of a psychic character that's used well would be, I think, Mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Ooh, good pull. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, that is a character with very... who's put to use well by the writers in that she uses her powers in such a way that it's not overbearing. It doesn't just instantly shatter the plot, but at the same time she's a very important, useful member of her team. But more than that, she also is put to use very well to further the emotional conflicts in her team, that she reveals secrets and learns things that she immediately blabs. That,
Right.
that are put to use very well by the writers to like drive for the Gamora Star-Lord romance and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
At the opposite end of the extreme, I'd have to say Jean Grey kind of suffers from them not really being into the character. That Jean Grey, when it comes down to it, is just sort of a secret identity for Phoenix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and they have problems with Jean Grey specifically from there's galactic destroying, like, we're up at this level, like, I've controlled the entire, I'm going to destroy it all. Mm-hmm. And then we flip from that to, you left your toothbrush on my side of the sink this morning, and there's, like, no in between. Mm-hmm. There's very little, you ramp up very quickly to, oh, look, one is going to be, everything in the universe needs to stop me, or
like, hey, I'm ready for Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which again is hard to write for, but that still doesn't make it good. Mm-hmm. Let's put it that way. Did you have a secondary, either power or we've got our bookends? I agree wholeheartedly with your choice, by the way.
Oh yeah, I got to say that let's see other. I mean, I'm a firm believer that any power can be cool if you can blow it up big enough.
Okay.
If you can have the writing, if you can have the audacity to make it cool and memorable. Now, not all of them are going to be, particularly heroic, but
sure,
I'm a firm believer that any power can be cool, even if you have like squirrel control. If you can, if you can have the squirrels go on a rampage,
yep.
Then that's land of piranhas. It could be really gross.
Land piranhas. Oh, the Phineas and Ferb song, SIMP, Squirrels in My Pants.
Oh,
always a shout out there to Phineas and Ferb.
Oh,
always
absolutely.
A good thing.
Could go very poorly.
Yeah.
Very poorly.
Squirrels in My Pants, land piranha. I don't want to. Mm-hmm. There it is. It's a really, really good thing. Alrighty, so I think we've got great bookends. I think we've got good honorable mentions. I think that's a very, very, very solid running into where we did the best last time. We did the worst this time.
Yes, the powers that we would want to have. That's a different show.
Yeah,
we definitely had a thorough
examination of those. Exactly. But as far as bad powers, bad heroes, I think we've covered a fair amount of them.
Every hero, I think, has the potential to be a good hero. It's just if you love them enough.
Awesome. All right. Well, this is I'm Scott with Gaming with Scott.
I'm John with Gaming with Scott.
You can find us at gamingwithscott.com, on Twitter, GamingWScott, on Facebook, GamingWScott. We are all over the interwebs. Instagram, GamingWScott. And as always, you'll hear from us real soon. Bye.
Aloha, meaning goodbye.
For updates about upcoming SMG Podcast Marathons, follow us on Twitter at SMG Pods, on Facebook at Southgate Media Group, or go to our website and sign up for our email list at southgatemediagroup.com. Thanks again for listening.